Orlando, Florida. You're now listening to the OZone Podcast, the voice of Orlando Magic fans. Join us every week for a unique fan perspective on all of the latest Magic news and updates. The show starts now.
Welcome back to another episode of the OZone Podcast, brought to you by DraftKings and now part of the Basketball Podcast Network. We're your hosts, Al, myself, Anthony. Today is June 10th, and we are exactly 12 days away from the NBA lottery. And today we got special guest, CEO and lead instructor of Elite Basketball Skills and video associate for the Orlando Magic, Darrell Jordan Jr., a.k.a. Pnutt. What's up, man?
Nothing much, man. Happy to be here. How are you guys doing?
Good, man. Good. We're happy to have you on, man. We got a full list, so I hope you're ready for us. But before we get into it, how has your offseason been? I know this past season, from everything that I've been hearing from other players and people around the league, the season has been a very long, draining season. So how happy are you to be in off season and what you've been up to?
I mean, it's cool to have off season, but it's just been up and down just because, like, there's so many different, like, tests we have to do or how many times we got to take them. So it's just a matter of, like, trying to get, like, that work-life, balance. It's hard to do, especially, play a back-to-back game, or you play every other day. And so you're just always kind of, like, in the gym. So it's almost like you sleep in the gym. But now that it's a little bit of a downtime and we just, go to the gym to do whatever we need to do for that day, the hours are shorter. You don't have to worry about, like, watching or scouting or cutting a game or putting together something for, coaching staff. You just kind of go in there, do your business with players, and then you, like, go home and you kind of have the rest of your day. So a little easier.
Yeah, being around the league, I heard that it's just nonstop testing. It's almost on a daily basis, is it not?
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough that I was allowed to go to the bubble. So I've been testing for like over a year every single day until they recently stopped it towards the end of the season. So
Wow.
yeah, it's like every day you go get tested, and every once in a while you got to go back twice, just depending on whatever the rules are for that day. So that part's draining because you're like, you come up every single time you don't have, the virus, but you're testing every single day to make sure you don't have the virus, so yeah, it can be draining. That can be draining on top of, like, you can't go into the gym until this time because you have to do the test, you got to be out by this time to go do this part. So that gets draining, but.
Yeah, man, they just announced today that they're working on putting the regular schedule back in for this upcoming season. So that's exciting. We're already getting a little glance of, the fans going back into the arena. So it feels as if there's just a little more, we're getting back to normal a bit. So that's exciting. Now, for those that aren't familiar with you, what exactly is it? What are your job responsibilities when we say, a video associate for the Orlando Magic? What is it? What is it exactly that you do for the team?
Kind of jack of all trades, but the biggest responsibility, we have to, like, watch, like, all of the other teams play that we're getting ready to play. So we watch all their games. We do the, like, film edit, so we're, like, putting in the plays, breaking it down for, like, the coaches because they all have specific areas that they need to look at and watch. So you're, like, doing those games, getting to them, and then you're, like, in the gym in the morning for when players want to come shoot, or they have their shooting times. So you're, like, rebounding and passing, and then after that, you got practice. So you may have to run through a couple plays if coach needs you. And after practice, the guys that didn't shoot in the morning, they're going to shoot after. Then you finish that and you kind of, like, take a deep breath. But then there's usually, like, a game that you have to, like, watch and edit and cut and do all that kind of stuff. So you're back at the gym, or if you want to do it at home, I usually come back to the gym. It's just easier, kind of get your alone time, and you can, get through a little bit faster. And then, every blue moon, one of the guys call, "Hey, I'm coming in to shoot." And you're like, "All right, here we go." So, you go in there, you work with them, then you get back to your duties and kind of, do it all over again. So your days can, go anywhere depending on how you do your work schedule. You can be there from, like, 6 in the morning until, 2 in the next morning, 2 a.m. the next morning.
Wow.
Forbid that there's a game that goes into overtime. I remember my first year, I had Memphis, Brooklyn. I think it was in Brooklyn. This was like 3 years ago, and it went to like 3 or 4 overtimes, and it was a late game. And what we consider a late game is if it starts at, like, 10 o'clock East Coast time. And so, like, it just, like, kept going. It was like, oh, they tied it up overtime. Oh, we're just sitting there like, holy moly, because the way you have to do the edit is once the quarter's over, about 2-3 minutes after the quarter's over, the system downloads the quarter, and then you go through the whole quarter. So you're always like a quarter behind. So when you're like, oh, finally I'm done with the fourth quarter, and then you look up, it's like overtime. You're like, oh, here we go. And so
yeah, so you kind of can't start in the full quarter's over, right?
Yeah, you can't start till the full quarter's over. And if you got 2 games in a night, sometimes you're just kind of like, oh man, it's gonna be a long one because you finish one and you start the other. But it gets easier with time. It's just in the beginning, starting out, you like get into a groove, and before you know it, you're like, oh man, I'm like halfway through this game. Like, you just kind of figure it out from there. But it's a lot.
Crazy. So it definitely sounds like it's a lot of work. Now, for those listeners that don't know, how you got to Orlando, what's your story behind that? So how did you end up with the Orlando Magic?
You want the short version of Orlando, or where I like started in the whole basketball process that I feel led me to Orlando?
Listen, give us the whole story.
Well, all right. So I'll give you a little bit about myself. So I'm originally from Oklahoma. So I was like born small town Oklahoma. My parents moved to Nevada. So I grew up. I was in Las Vegas. I went to middle school, high school, so on and so forth. I ended up graduating from the University of Nevada, Reno, and my childhood friend was a lottery pick in 2003. And so I finished college and he finished college, and he was just like, as kids, you always make that joke, oh, when I become a professional, I got us. Well, I never made that joke. I looked at myself like, I probably won't be a professional. Mentally I'll be a professional somewhere, but physically, I just did enough to get through school, right? And I'll never forget, I'm sitting in college. I'd already graduated. I was just kind of up there, all right, what am I going to do, with my life, as far as am I going to keep pursuing the basketball coaching stuff, or am I going to get a real job, so on and so forth. And he called and he was like, you watched the draft? I said, I did. He's like, you ready? I was like, I am. He was like, all right. Packed up my stuff. I drove back to Vegas. I flew out, went with him to his team, started working for him. He started his own little company. I started working for him. I started my own little training, company, which is, my elite basketball skills. So I started doing that, and I was just literally training guys any chance that I got, working with them, getting shots, just perfecting my craft. Season would end. I would literally go to a college, whatever university was having a camp, and I would take the money from that camp to buy a ticket to the next camp. And I would do that all summer. For the first part of the summer. And then I would work out guys until we would fly back to the team we played for. And I'd go back to working for him and so on and so forth. So I did that for about 7 years. And I got a call one day from a junior college, and they were like, hey, we need a coach down here. We got a couple recommendations. So I went down to a small town in Texas, started coaching junior college. Thankful, which was funny, there were about 4 or 5 kids on the team who were from Vegas, and they had watched me play growing up. So they had known me. So I was like, oh, this is easy.
Nice.
So yeah. So did that.
Hey, you're coming in with the respect already.
yeah, kind of. The junior college rank, I would say, is totally different. I had like a CDL, drive a people mover. I had to live in the dorms. I made $500 the whole time there. That was a grind. That was a big grind. You travel somewhere with the girls team, they play first, then they wait on us, and we all come back together. You're stopping at McDonald's to grab something to eat. The cafeteria's not open on Sundays, so it was a whole big. It's like going back to college all over again. So doing that, I left after a year because I had a bigger opportunity as far as training, because there were a lot of different people back home in Vegas that were just like, hey, where you at? Want to work. So I would work and do that. So doing all that, my buddy started an AAU program. I started coaching AAU. I was really successful in that rank. And through my own self, what I used to pride myself on is I didn't really help every single kid growing up. If you really want to do the basketball thing, I had rules. It was not all of you are going to be professional athletes. Some of you will never be professional athletes, but you can get your education paid for. And that was my biggest thing. How can we get the education paid for? So if somebody wanted to work with me, one, I was probably the most expensive person in Vegas to work with, especially when it came to the youth, because I didn't work with everybody, and I gave you everything. I was lucky enough that every single kid that I helped played Division I basketball, except for one kid, and he didn't want to sit. He wanted to play, so he went to like a Division II, which is fine because he had fun, but he had an opportunity, to go to a Division I. So I did that. Moved over to like the EYBL side. Had some success, with the EYBL program, and then I called my buddy's agent, and because we were friends after it's been 20 years, this guy's known me, and I was just like, hey, I just want to know if you know anybody that would allow me to come out and work the pre-draft. I just want to kind of do it for experience. I run all these guys all the time, and I just want to, see what it's like to be in that arena. And he was like, it's funny. I just talked to somebody. He's like, let me call him back. And so he calls this GM back, and it was like, yeah, hey, no problem. If he wants to come out here, these are the dates, whatever. I mean, I was paying for it my own self. They didn't pay for it. So it was kind of free labor in a sense, but I was looking at it, in a bigger picture.
To get the experience.
Yeah, exactly. One of the kids that I had grown up helping, like kind of mentored, just like my guy, he actually was signed by the team, and his father called me. So this is how funny this story happened. So this was like, let's say like a Wednesday, that I talked to my agent buddy and asked, for this opportunity. Calls me back like, yeah, you got it, whatever. Thursday, I get a call from my buddy's dad. Like, hey, let's go watch him play. You got signed for the rest of the year, playoffs. You want to go? I was like, yeah, whatever. We left Friday. So we fly to the team that I actually ended up doing, like the pre-draft for. GM walks in. I introduce myself, Darrell Jordan, blah, blah, blah. Boom. Thought nothing of it. I didn't really know. My agent buddy called me. He was like, hey, I just got off the phone with the GM there. Well, he was like at the gym. He's like, where are you at? I was like, oh, I'm in the gym. He's like, oh, you here in Vegas? I'm like, no, I actually flew out to go watch, the little fellow play. And so he was like, really? He was like, that's who I called. He was like, let me call you back. So he like calls the GM back. GM comes back in the gym. He's like, hey, you're Pnutt. And I was like, yeah, I'm Pnutt. And he was like, well, you like told me Darrell Jordan. I was like, well, that's my real name. Just, everybody calls me Pnutt. So I go to his office. I tell him my story. He was just like, wow. It's like, you did all that. And then everybody thought like I was in my 20s. And I was like, nah, like I'm in my mid 30s at this point. And he was just like, what? I was like, yeah. So I came out for pre-draft, and first day I got there, got set up, met, all that kind of stuff, started doing the workouts. The second day he took the Orlando job. So I was just like sitting at this team like, okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like, no big deal. My agent buddy calls him. He was like, no, I saw him. Great guy. He's like, had opportunity, so on and so forth. I'm like, all right, cool. So I finished out my 11 days there. I get a call from the GM. He was like, hey, there could be an opportunity here. I saw what you did. I loved it. I'll get back to you. I was like, all right, great. Tried to work some things. And then there was like a storm that came like kind of right before the season. And so it kind of like pushed everything back. So I just like stayed in Vegas, thought it was like no opportunity left. Just kind of was like, whatever, no big deal. I was grateful to be there for the time, so I kind of saw what it was like to be on the other side. And then I get a call the following year. It's like, hey, opportunity opened up. New staff's coming in. Would you be interested? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Then I ended up meeting the president of the team, told him my story. He was like, hey, we'll get back to you. I got a call when they came to Vegas for Summer League. And this is when I got to meet the head coach. Like, we were all just powwow together. They all were like, hey, man, like, we could use you. We'd like to give you this opportunity if you take it. I was like, yeah, sure. When do I come? They're like, when can you come? I was like, out of respect for the job that I was working, can I just give them 2 weeks? They're like, yeah, no problem. And I literally 2 weeks packed up, came cross country. That's how I landed in Orlando.
Man, that's crazy. So let me ask you, when it comes to opportunity within basketball, especially obviously in the league, is there any preference, or is really you're willing to go wherever the opportunity is? Because we went from Texas to community to now, going from Vegas to Orlando.
For me personally, or just period?
Both personally and then professionally.
So personally for me, I love basketball so much, and I'm willing to, take these chances because they don't come around all the time. It's almost like the draft, right? 200 people enter the draft. There's 60 spots, and only 30 are guaranteed. So what happens to the other 200 or 140 other people? They're not going to probably get that opportunity. So that's how I look at it. This opportunity happened. Why not take the chance? What's the worst that can happen? I got an opportunity to do something that people are knocking on doors to do, begging to do, trying to do. So for me, yeah, I would have went anywhere. It didn't bother me. I mean, I kind of consider myself like a traveler. Like with basketball, I've been literally everywhere that you can think of. So for me to stay somewhere for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 years, it wouldn't bother me if it's involved with basketball. Now, on the other side, for other people, I can't speak on other people. I would assume some people aren't willing to go somewhere and take that chance because you are taking a chance, right? You go somewhere, take like Indiana, right? Let's say somebody moved there this year and then their coach is removed. That doesn't necessarily say that you get to stay with that team, right? You got to re-interview with the new coach, or they just get rid of everybody, and then hopefully you shaking enough hands that somebody else can place you, or that coach has enough friends that says, hey, this guy worked hard for me for this year. Can I send them to you? So it's a scary situation for a lot of people. But for me, I was willing to take a chance, and so it's worked out so far.
Now you mentioned earlier that you're a you do a little bit of everything. Is it typical for a video associate to kind of be hands-on on the court, helping the players shoot at the gym, long hours? Is that typical, or is that kind of the area that you kind of fell in with
Now,
the team?
So good question. I came into this, green. I didn't know what it was, right? Like, what do I do? Like, so learning and having other friends that are, in the league, everybody's team is different, but the role that I have kind of stays the same, right? Like players want to come back at night. The coaches have a huge agenda, right? Like they have a big, like a plate full of things, right? So for them to come back, yeah, they will come back. They have no problem with that. But there's some nights where it's like, hey, we have these guys here who know our system. They know what we're doing. And you're just coming back to shoot like 100 shots, right? So you're basically rebounding and passing. The guys who've been in the league a while, they have routines. So they may say, hey, I only want to shoot, 5 pull-ups from this spot, 5 pull-ups from this spot, and do some ball handling, right? So they come in, come out. Then you have like some younger guys who are like, hey, I'm just trying to get better. What would you like? Like, what can I do? Like, what do you see? So you're like, all right, hey, you know what? Let's shoot 50 shots, but let's shoot them this way. Or they might come and say, hey, I need to get a little better with my handle. And with that, you just kind of, all right, here's some drills. Here's some stuff that we can do. Here's some stuff that, we do in our offense, things like that. So that part is all the same. Now how it's controlled is different, for every team, I would imagine.
No, I got to ask. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Al.
No, I was going to transition to a different topic, but finish it before we go to that.
Yeah, so it's kind of like you're on call in essence, right? So a player wants to get some shots up. They say, yo, Pnutt, like I got to get this out of me. I got to take the 100 shots. So it can be 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night, and you're literally dropping everything you're doing. You're binge watching the newest show on Netflix is Top 10, and you can't finish watching that episode because you got to go to the court because Markel need to get some shots up. Is that really the scenario?
That's honestly the scenario. We're not binge watching anything other than NBA games because you're usually preparing for your next, team that we're playing. The one thing that I don't want to use the word tough, but one thing that will surprise you is some guys will play, right? We have a game tonight. They play and they shot bad. They will stay in their uniform, come to the practice gym, and you'll be down there on game night, and they may shoot for an hour trying to shoot out why they shot bad or whatever the case. That ends, and then you have to go do your edit. So it kind of like pushes you back, because like they come first, because without them, obviously, we don't have jobs, right? We need the players, things like that. So you're on call, but the guys aren't like disrespectful. They're not going to call at 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night and say, hey, I'm trying to get some shots because I can't sleep. It's nothing like that. It's usually, 8, 9 o'clock, they'll call, after they've been home, they've eaten or taken a nap or whatever the case may be. And for the most part, like, you have such a rapport with the players. Like, they all know, especially with me and my counterparts, like, we're usually up there. So for them to call, sometimes they'll just show up and they'll be like, well, I didn't really want to bother. We're like, nah, like, we're good. Because we'll see them on the screen coming to the gym. And we'll just go down there and like change, and they're like, "Oh, do you mind?" I'm like, "Yeah, no big deal." But for the most part, they'll give you a heads up. Hey, I'm coming in tomorrow at this time, or I might come in at this. You're just like, all right, cool.
Who puts you to work the most?
It varies. Yeah, because again, if guys have bad weeks, they're there the whole week. If guys are shooting well, they're really superstitious. But you will get a variety of young and old guys. It just depends. Like there's no guy who just comes in all the time and says you're gonna go to work. It can be anybody.
So with everything that you've done so far, so you've done some college, you've done your own kind of, again, with the elite project that you did, and now getting to the Magic. I got to ask you, so then what is your dream job? If you could kind of choose your path and idealize yourself at that situation, what would that be like? What role would that be?
When I'm ready. So that's the thing. I wouldn't jump into things as of right now, but I mean, ultimately, I think it would be cool to own a team. But I think I would be like, Steve Ballmer, Mark Cuban type. Like I want to be active still, because I just love the gym. But realistically, so I do have a goal, and my goal is to take the role that I have now, transition that into a bench role, from a bench role to a head job, from a head job to a GM, to a president, and then I can just ride off in the sunset. So like, God willing, and me, hustling and bustling and doing whatever it takes, and doing all the right things and getting better and learning from the people around me, I can get there. But I wouldn't be sad if I sat on a bench for 20 years and rode off into the sunset also. You know what I mean? Like I'm just looking for the longevity and the learning part of it. If it went to like a scouting role, if that was something that, interests me, I'm just all about the world of basketball. So, that's kind of, I'd love to end up being the one making the decision saying, keep this guy, trade this guy, bring this guy in and pay that guy. I think that would be, a really interesting part of the business, because I've always been the hands-on part of the business as a player, as what I do now, as having my own, training, helping people out. So I've always been hands-on. So to be like the thinker, instead of me physically going out there saying, I think you should do this, right? That's a whole change of role. And I think that's exciting as well.
I think the first person that comes to mind is Eric Spoelstra. When you see someone kind of go from, the video coordinator, what you're doing right now, and then, now a head coach and it's been with Miami for a long time. Do you see that as kind of a motivation, a pathway, a blueprint of some sort?
So that honestly, that's a great question. So I toy with that. I think that's great for myself, Eric Spoelstra. I think Vogel was in the video room. I think that's great. Like you learn a lot in the video room. But I also think there's some people, let's take Chauncey Billups. Would you ever put him in the video room? No, he'd go to a bench and he would. So everybody's, job is different, right? There's some people who are going to be in the front office who might say, you know what, like Pat Riley did the one time, he stepped down to be the head coach in Miami, when he's already in the front office. So I think it all depends. Is it a bad way to go? Absolutely not. Because you learn so much, right? You see it from literally the ground up, right? You don't miss a step because you see like how the games are edited, what plays other teams run, who are the key guys, how you run your defense towards it, how they run their offensive stuff. So you have all this information that you wouldn't get if you already sat on the bench, because you're trying to gain that information, which you're getting from the video room. So do I think it's a pathway? Absolutely. Do I think it's for everybody? Probably not. Does it hurt you? Absolutely not. Does it help you? It definitely can. I toy with that.
Yeah, I mean, it just sounds like it really is a daily grind. Now, I've been wanting to ask you this question since we started. When it comes to showing video, or when the team is watching video, I kind of imagine and it's my own make-believe idea that they're all kind of in a movie theater. Coach Cliff is on the sideline with a laser pointer, and then they're just literally watching the game from beginning to end. And from what it sounds like is that's not the case, that there's certain areas that the coach is requesting and they focus on certain areas. Because I'm thinking that it's literally from beginning to end, the coach is pausing, rewinding, playing, pointing out Mo, pointing out, Markel, whatever the case may be, rewinding, hearing David Steele talking about this, and the players are going back. Like that's how I'm envisioning it, and I'm imagining that that's not the case at all.
Well, you have a great vision that is not
There's
true.
no popcorn. There's no popcorn.
Right. So I'll how it's broken down is like this. So let's say you're playing your team. There's typically 100 plays per game, right? Like offensive plays, right? 100 offensive, 100 defensive, or so about 200 clips. Coach will take that game, and he will pick out. We'll say just on a day that's a little longer, right? 7 to 10 clips, right? And on average, he may pick 4 or 5 clips. But those are clips that like where we might have missed an assignment that could have changed the trajectory of what we were doing, or something that we didn't really get to go over that much in practice, so we want to see it, right? So coach will get up there, he'll have his board, he'll literally, put the information of like, what's needed, how we were last night, like whether it was like we had 10 turnovers and we should have had, 5, or, just things like that. They out rebounded us by 4, just visually, so they're talking points for coach. And then he'll go through film. If he uses film, he doesn't use film every single day, right? Or every single practice. But we'll go through, and it's literally, once he takes it, we'll have the edit, and he'll just say, hey, I want this clip, and this clip. We'll put it together for coach and put it on the computer. So he literally just has to click, so it comes up, and he goes through, right? He'll just say, hey, and there's no sound. So you're watching, and all the guys are sitting like on the practice court in our chairs. Like we'll pull all the chairs out before they get out, and it's like this big, huge TV that's hooked up to our computer, and coach just stands like in one spot, and he's just like, hey, we need to rotate here, or hey, this is a good shot, or look at this floor spacing, watch what happens when we move the ball, whatever it is that the topic is. Then after that, he's like, all right, good. He's like, go warm up. So then we'll grab all chairs, put them back, all that kind of stuff, move it up the court, and then the staff will come out and like warm them up, get them loose, and then that's probably like 10 minutes, and then we're like, coach may like have a small walkthrough, like he might say, hey, before we start, let's go over this, and this physically, and they'll just like walk through, and then we'll like start practice, and then that's how it is. Now, when the coaches have like your individual player that they're working with, so like let's say we'll use Markel for example. Coach will sit, whatever coach is working with Markel, right? He'll sit with Markel and he'll do the same thing, but he'll have his own clips, right? They won't be the clips that we saw in practice. They'll have his own, and it could be whatever he feels Markel needs to see. So if it's, let's say, some defensive rotations, hey, here's 5 clips, and they'll watch that before they shoot or after they shoot. And so each coach has whatever player they're talking to has a couple clips that they'll show that player before or after, they shoot after practice or before practice. So that's how it's broken down. So all those clips, you may use 20.
Man, but that is
wow,
amazing insight. Thank you for sharing that with us. Because again, now we can. Now Anthony knows you guys not eating popcorn.
No popcorn.
That's not what's happening.
No popcorn.
And don't get me wrong, the guys, they may say, hey, coach, can you like rewind that? You know what I mean? Like they want to, just to ask coach, because that's what it's about. It's about like getting better. You know what I mean? Like what we saw and what they saw, and things like that. So, and the players do the same thing. Like the players call and say, hey, can you get all of my shots? And we pull all their shots so they can, and we'll send to like their iPads or to their computers, whatever they have, so they can actually look on their own. Like everybody's invested in the whole process of watching film. It's not, we're going to watch the whole game all over and see all the good and bad. It's not like that. It's like in out, because we're trying to practice, because again, you might have a game the next day. You may have a game, that night, it just all depends.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. So let's transition here quickly to some Magic basketball talk. And I'm going to take it back to last August. And really, August, July of last year, the bubble. I know I kept watching your feed, and I know you were a key member of making that happen. You were very involved in the whole situation. Just 3 questions that popped to mind about the whole experience for you. What was that experience like? Any memorable moments? And what did you enjoy the most and disliked about that experience?
So I enjoyed the whole opportunity and the experience, and I'm thankful that, upper management, front office said, hey, we trust you to represent the Magic, and we want you to help out in the bubble. Would you mind? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? You know what I mean? So first and foremost, that was like the cool part. It's like being selected, because there weren't a lot of people selected, right?
Mhm.
And there you truly were the jack of all trades because you had to make sure all of the, PPE stuff was straight, make sure teams had what they needed, make sure, whatever places you could fill the gap, you were doing that. So you're always all over the place. The length of the stay, it didn't really bother me too much. Like you're confined to one little area, and that's kind of like, okay, like what do you do, right? So you could go swimming, you could ride a bike, you could work out, you could do your job and work, obviously. You know what I mean? You could watch all the games. That was, the cool thing. So you found things to do, and with your time, when you had the time, staying in the same like hotel room, for I can't tell how many days I was there. I was there like 3 months, so you know what I mean, like the same room. It was almost like Groundhog's Day every day. Wake up,
Mhm.
do this, go outside, eat, because you had to test every day. So you like literally, you had to wake up. You had to had this like heart monitor thing for your finger. You had to get that. You had to log on to your phone, put that information into your phone, check your temperature, put that into your phone, walk over to your testing site, take the test, and then they link that to your phone. So you had all your information, all your daily stuff every day. Then after you do that, go grab something to eat, kind of do whatever duties you had to do, come back, and you probably had like a 2-hour window before you possibly had to go to an arena and make sure they had their stuff or what game's playing, or somebody may request something, and you'd have to go like find them. So that was kind of the daily everyday thing. Now the cool thing about it was you literally, outside of like the Magic, you were there with other teams, so you kind of saw how like teams were together, how the players were outside of like fans, because everyone there was somebody in a sense, right? Like you didn't have
Right.
to go outside and say, "Oh, how many autographs do I have to sign?" Right? Because it's like they're buddies, or they know each other. It's like, hey, and they keep going. You saw how teams like were, taking advantage of this, and how some people were just, I'm here in the bubble. There's nothing really to do. But then you would also find like coaching staffs like walking. So there's like this. You could walk around where we were actually at. I think it was like 3 miles. Like if you walked around like 20 times or something like that, So you would see people in the morning. That was their routine. They'd get together as a staff. They'd walk, boom, disperse. Rob Pelinka every day would like go swimming, go run, and then he'd vanish. You know what I mean? Like into whatever. But every day you would see like all these different people doing all these cool things. So that was an experience. I think one of the best experiences that when you were at the games, it was so intimate because like you literally could hear things that you wouldn't hear in a game. So like you would hear like the benches, like, oh, let him shoot, like, oh, that get ready to rebound, run, or like don't close out to him, like, hey, attack him, attack. So and it was almost like being outside at the park, but it was like organized in a sense, right? Like no one was getting technicals. They were laughing at people when they do stuff wrong. Just you could just see like the team camaraderie in full effect. And when you're watching a game on TV, you see the crowd, you hear the noise, all that stuff's drowned out. And especially when you're at a game, same thing, right? You're just like focused on one thing. When they're there and there's like 30 people there and 20 of them are like the camera crew and the staff, and all, like there's just like this small group of people who actually are working the bubble watching these games. Like we're the fans, and you're not really a fan because you're just watching basketball. You know what I mean? So it's not like, oh, I'm totally rooting for this guy, because like it's just a basketball game. Now, when the Magic play, it's different because you're like invested in those guys, right? So you're like,
Mhm.
oh man,
Right.
good shot. Oh, I can't believe you did this. But other teams are just like, wow, and you get to see up close and personal like those players, and that was like a cool experience, right? Because you could say like this is their element. Like to watch Miami when they went on their bubble run, like how hard they played, or shots they hit, especially like the Denver Utah series. Remember that series where like Donovan
Oh yeah.
Mitchell like laying it on the floor at the end, like to be there, it was so genuine for guys to come over and pick him up and say like, hey man, good job, you played well. Because in the game, everybody just at the end of the game, hey, all right, peace, and they walk off. Here, like people literally was like the old school elementary high five, good game, like that kind of thing. And then they end up at the same hotel, and they're playing paddleball or whatever. Like it's not like there's like no beef, but you can see the dynamic. Like Miami, I feel like they would go everywhere together. Like when you saw one Miami player, it was like a trickle effect. They're all following. They go eat together. They go back to their room together. They would go, there's like this like in the middle of where there's like a little restaurant. They all go eat together. You know what I mean? Not say other teams wouldn't, but they would be in packs, right? You have like 4 or 5 guys, 2 or 3 guys. Miami was like, if you saw one, slowly but surely you would see everybody coming.
And team chemistry. Stuff
Yeah.
like that is important. I remember reading an article or seeing it. There was players that were seeing the Lakers kind of celebrate after they had won, and they took a video of one of them having a party. Or I want to say that was maybe Bam a couple maybe the series before that. He walked past by one of the players that he had eliminated, and it's just an awkward feeling because it kind of feels like it was NBA University, NBA 2K. Like it seemed like it was fun at first. Everyone was getting the goodie bags that the NBA gave them. Then you had the barbershop. You were able to go fishing. You're able to do that. But 3 months is a really long time. And after a certain time period, I can see where it does get draining, and it gets draining really fast because it's literally nonstop. It's basketball. It's not like you can go home and kind of decompress. Can go home to your family. You can't, you're not laying in your own bed. I thought before we actually started playing in the bubble that the Magic were going to have kind of that home court advantage or that little bit of edge, knowing that they weren't that far away from home. And I feel like that wasn't the case. So very similar to LeBron was on his show saying that he got PTSD from Orlando, from the bubble. Do you see that as reasonable in the sense where you can kind of see how people are kind of tired of Orlando because of that experience?
Well, yes and no. Like I understand being tired. Like you being away from your family for that long, or just your everyday things, right? Like you could. Hey, I go to this coffee shop, every morning before, like, you're not doing that. Like, you're just here. And it wasn't like, anything was going to change, right? Even when they started to bring the families in towards the, end of the bubble, it wasn't like, oh, my family, you know what I mean? Because like, you're already in that routine of doing this. Now you're just adding like kids. So you see players with their families and kids and stuff. And it was great, but they couldn't really hang out because, you're preparing for the next game. So yeah, I could definitely see how, someone feels like that, but also with like the advantage, because we were here in Orlando, there's no true advantage. They didn't get to go home. Like we're just, it was almost at times you could say it was worse because like if your family's 20 minutes away and you don't get to see them for, I think the Magic stayed here like 6 weeks, right? You know what I mean? Like you don't get to see them for 6 and they're 20 minutes away. It's different if my family's in LA, that's across the country, right? And even at that, let's say we just had the bubble and families could do whatever, like what were you going to do? Like Disney wasn't open. It wasn't like you're going to go to the park. It wasn't like so they would just be there with you going swimming every day or riding a bike every day or fishing. I mean, it wasn't like there was like a spot where they played. Like it was funny. One of the players had said, because there was like a players pool, right? They had a DJ, they could do whatever. But it's like you're there with like 40 guys. Like, so who wants to go? Like, no one ever went. Like, like that.
Right.
Like, no one ever went because it's like, why would I go there? I don't have my family. So it's not like I can, like, shuck and jive and hang out with my family, with good music playing. I'm like with my teammates. If that be the case, might as well do what everybody did. Just walked around and, hung out and, played cards or down, whatever it was, because that's all you could really do. The one thing, like a lot of people, there was this, like sports bar in the hotel that we're staying at, everybody would just go there and watch whoever's on TV. So like if we, like in my role, if I didn't have time to go to a game, because I was doing whatever, duties I need to do, we just all go to the sports bar, like the little crew that I was with, and we just sit there and you'd have, this team's players over here, these team's players over here, and everybody's just watching the games. And that's what everybody did. Eat, watch the games, game be over, everybody's like, all right, we're out. And they go back to their rooms, go back to your room, and that's it.
That sounds
fun. The only people that truly, I would say, kind of had like, I don't know if it was fun. I think everybody had fun, but the referees, because they were on like, I think like 3-day rotation. So like they would ref for like 3 days, get like a day off, the ref for 3. So they would always be at the pool. The referees were like super cool. They'd be at the pool and they'd be playing their music and they'd be laughing and playing dominoes and cards. And that was like the kind of hangout, but the players aren't hanging out with the referees because they're on a whole different site. You know what I mean?
Right.
But the referees had like the best time.
No, man, for good reason.
They're on rotation.
Keep them separated.
Can you imagine that?
Keep them separated for good and bad reasons. Let's keep them on opposite ends.
For sure.
Now, one of the things that happened at the bubble, unfortunately, for the Magic fan base to this day, we're still thinking of that moment, is J.I., as we know, right? So he came back, looked amazing for that period of time that he was able to play. And unfortunately, he re-injured himself. As we fast forward 6 months later, unfortunately, the same thing happens to Markelle Fultz. So you get to see those guys on a daily basis. You get to see them, how they're doing today. What are your thoughts? Not so much on their injuries. We know they'll come back fine. We have faith in that. How do you see them transitioning after the injury and coming back and adapting to this new Magic team now with all these young guys? What's your take on Markelle and J.I. in the future with the Magic here?
To be honest, like when it comes to things like that, like it's all about health, right? You can say, okay, if J.I. doesn't get hurt, Markelle doesn't get hurt, where would the Magic be at today, right? You know, this basketball, things happen. I think those guys being young and how hard they work, like in the gym with these injuries, you know, getting better. They're always doing their training. They never take days off. You know, they push themselves every day getting better. I think with those guys and with the young guys that we have right now, like it's only going up from here. Like how could it really go down? Because give these guys 2, 3, 4, 5 years, like they're veterans, they're in their primes. You know, they're going to have a lot of minutes on their body because they have all the years experience. They're going to, you know, be able to work through things that they didn't have the opportunity to work through. Like I can only see positive things, you know, going forward. You know, and if Jag gets back to, you know, his potential, he could have been like the defensive, you know, player of the year, or at least first team, you know, all defense. Like when he's putting up great numbers, you know, prior to that injury, if you get him and then if Markelle plays the way that he was playing before his injury, you put those together with the guys that we have that came over in the trade, the guys that have been here, you know, how Cole played, you know, this year, how Chuma played this year, you know, RJ played down the stretch, you know, semi-veteran guy, you know, in Gary Harris, how, you know, he could, you know, fill a role. T. Ross being T. Ross. Like, I mean, you know, you just need games at that point, right? You know what I mean? Like the more games they play together and get comfortable and start knowing where to be on the floor for each other. Like, you know, look at Mo down the stretch. You know, he had career highs, you know, in a couple categories. You know, Wendell's been solid. I mean, I just don't really see a hole in that team other than, you know, experience, right? You know, get more experience. You never know what could happen. And no one gets, you know, injured. But it's basketball. Things happen. So, you know, blessed that we don't get injured. And let's see who wants to play, you know, because they're going to have to play every single night against those guys.
It just seems like it happened really, really often to what felt like only us. But I've already I've already mentally convinced myself that, you know, Markelle, J.I., that they have some crazy Wolverine surgery treatment that they had and they will never injure themselves in the same way again. I've already mentally prepared myself. We're good. Now I do want to take it a little back to 2019. Markelle was still newly traded to the Orlando Magic, and we already got word that he was going to play, and there was a big there was a lot of hype in seeing what his shooting form looked like, and no one really knew what it was. And then randomly there was a viral video that gets posted of Markelle shooting, and the thing went viral. Everyone kind of went crazy over it. And we noticed that you were one of the ones that were there shooting with him. We did some crazy investigation. You have no idea how Al and I were able to connect the dots, but we realized that you were there with him. Now, the wild thing about that video that was posted, literally maybe a few minutes later, that video was deleted within a quickness. First, I don't know if there was any conversation that was had. Like, again, an imagination of mine. I'm thinking like Markelle received a text message. We're stopping right now. Who posted that video? Delete that video, and then you continue going. And if that wasn't the case, how was the training process with Markelle during that time of him finally being in a new situation and being able to really, you know, work on his game, work on the shooting, with, you know, health kind of a little bit behind him?
Well, first, hats off you guys with this investigation. So you guys did
Crazy
notice that I
investigation.
was in there. um, so that was in the summertime. We were in LA at the like Mamba Academy or whatever, working out, and the gym. I don't know if you've ever been there. So it's a huge gym, and there's stuff going on, right? There's other professional athletes and there, other things going on. And I want to say at that time, um, there was like the ending of like a kids camp or something, and I'm assuming because I don't know. I'm assuming some kid was like, "Oh, that's you know Markel Fultz, let me," so on and so forth. And as we're working out, we don't notice that. We're not looking to see who, checking everybody's phone, things like that. I mean, it's anybody can walk in that place. You know what I mean? As far as an athlete coming to get working. So when it came to that, we didn't know until after the fact. Like we were done working out. We're like changing, doing whatever. I'm gonna head back to the hotel. Whatever. And it's like, hey, you guys, blah blah blah. No one was upset because it wasn't like a secret. It was just more of like a safe space. He's working out. He's gonna have to show the world eventually. I just think it was kind of probably faster than what people anticipated, or wasn't when people had anticipated. Now, as far as it getting taken down, no clue, because I mean, we don't know how it got up in the first place. But we saw it. You know what I mean? Like, because once it hits the airwaves, before you can take it down, it's passed around and sent and so on and so forth. Good thing is, he was hitting the shot, so that makes it even more intriguing. You know what I mean? So it's
Right.
like,
At least they
and
were
when it,
considerate. They waited for they only posted the shot
the
making.
shot that went in, right?
There was some
Um,
thought process that went into it.
I think it was more, and I'm like from a fan's perspective, right? You hear all of this, you want to see all this. He was picked number one for some reason. He, you know, did what he did in college to get to this point, and then you don't see it. And then you hear all these rumors and whys and this, and everybody starts, playing detective and trying to put two and two together, and they're really getting five when the answer's four, because you just don't know. And then to get a glimpse, I think just makes people go, wow, I have to see this in full person. But if you think about it, right, when you finally got to see it, his numbers weren't that bad. Like, from like people were thinking like, oh, he can't do anything. He's a terrible this, he's terrible that. But if you go look at his numbers, like he really helped the Magic for the time that, he played, before the injury, whether it was shooting, whether it was, creating, whether it was just playing basketball. And you have to remember he was off like a year from playing
Mhm.
basketball in a sense, right? So the work that he put in prior to that, because when he first came to the team, obviously he wasn't playing because he was still coming off his injury, things like that, and rehabbing, and then going into that summer and just working hard, and then coming into our training camp and then working hard, and then boom, here you go, this is Markel. It makes people say, oh, I see why he was a top pick, or I see why he's a really good guard. And then you get the injury and you're like, I want to see more. So with that, he just has a great spirit about himself. Like he's never down on himself. He's always, honest with himself. He'll come get extra. He'll do more. He'll do whatever it takes. Like he's a guy who you want on your team because he's coachable, and he could easily be a number one pick who says, "Hey, I was a number one pick," or a guy who says like, "Oh, can't believe this is happening to me." It can go so many different ways, and he's totally opposite of all that. He's coming in. He listens to our shooting coach. They work together. Then he works with his position coach. They work together. Then he gets any advice from any and everybody, myself included, and I'm a video associate. Uh, he's super into making himself better, and he has this thing about him where he understands people are going to say what they're going to say, but like that's not his like focus. His focus is I can only control what I can control. I'll tell you a quick story. We were in California when we were doing like the workout, and I was just sitting with Markel, and I just said, Kel, I just want to ask you, like, if I'm getting too personal, let me know. He's like, no, Pnutt, you can ask whatever. I was like, all this stuff that you hear, like these announcers, these, radio personality. He was like, something, Pnutt? He's like, I don't even like watch that stuff. And I'm like, you have to. I was like, because I watch it. He's like, no, I really don't. He's like, what can they tell me about myself that I don't already know? And what can they tell me about myself about my game if they're not in the gym helping me work on it. And I was just
Sure.
like, wow, like, you know what I mean? Like, I get it. And that's how he comes to practice, like every day, big smile, laugh and joke. We have a great relationship. Like Markel and I, like we're constantly, making jokes. I could get a random text from this guy, in the middle of the night making a joke, just like he's just one of those guys, like do the same thing. He has like one of the greatest memes ever where he's like doing like this like funky chicken with his legs, and every time like he does something like that I think is pretty cool, I like send it and he always laughs, right now. He's just a good guy. Like, so to have a guy like that on our team, he's infectious. And then like, when coach comes in and says, hey, this is what we're looking for, everybody like buys in. We all just, get after it. Like we're just one big unit. We all work together. We want everybody to succeed, and we don't have a glory hog. It's all about me. It's just like, hey, if this is working, we'll go with that. If that's working, we go with that. So
that's amazing to hear. Now, I got to ask you a quick follow-up to the Markel conversation. I'm just a firm believer in always thinking positive, right? Out of any outcome, let's remain positive. So the injury with Markel, obviously, not what we wanted. We wanted to see him play. But in my opinion, at least as a fan, it gives him more time to keep working on that shoulder, keep working on the shooting form. And I know he wanted to elevate that shot a little more. It gives him that time to do so. Is that kind of the same approach that you think Markel has, and you as part of the coaching team? It's kind of the same idea that you guys have, like, hey, that whole negative thing happened, but hey, this may help him in the long run.
Yeah, definitely. Like, so Markel has an injury, obviously to his leg. That's not stopping his arm. So he still does all of his work, on his leg, and then he goes with our shooting coach and they shoot form shots, for 30, 45 minutes, so it's like, it's not like, it's just a matter of like running and jumping at this point, but like, he's still, every day, it's not like he just said, oh, I'm hurt, I just got to rehab. And it's like, he does the rehab part, then he's on the court, just working on his form, like dribbling, sitting down, whatever it is, like to just keep the basketball flowing. And that does help, because if you can imagine him healthy and shooting better than what anyone expects, and I think he averaged like 16 points or 17 points, before the injury. So just imagine if he hits 2 or 3 jump shots on top. That's that's 21 points a game with taking maybe 8, 9 shots. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like he's coming out there gunning. Like, some people in the league, they, take 20 shots to get 20 points. So I think it's a plus. It's a bonus for sure.
Yeah,
we don't want
I
to
think
hurt, don't get me wrong, but
I think
It'll
that's a good reminder to the listeners and the fans out there that it was a leg injury and he's still able to work on his game. So we have this whole entire time period that he hasn't played, that it's even more focus on the shooting. So it'll be exciting to finally get him on the court, especially for this upcoming season. Now I gotta ask, trade deadline, Coach Cliff no longer there. I mean, what's everyone's mindset, the thought process? There's awfully obviously a change to go younger. Did you see just from your standpoint a concern from the vets, excitement from the young guys, for the coaching staff that's still on board currently? What's their mindset through this massive change of occurrences that's happening right now?
I can speak for me. Going through this, it's the unknown, because you're just like, oh man, like the leader, as he's not here anymore. What do we do? But we go in there every day as if Coach Cliff was still there. Like, we go in there, work with the guys, everybody's still laughing and joking. We're still have that same atmosphere, because we still have jobs to do, and we still have opportunity to put a stamp on what Orlando is doing here. There's, the staff is still here for a reason, right? And whatever the front office is going to do, it's no one's controlling. Some people have been in this situation before. Me, first time, obviously, for me being in this situation. So when I first came, I was like, oh, what's going on here? But it's communication, right? You get the call, hey, we're all coming to work. So it's not as if Coach Cliff said, oh, I'm done with this, right? This was obviously something that was going on with Coach Cliff in the front office, and they felt, it was best for both. Like, when Coach called, he just said, hey, it's nothing against you. It's nothing against anybody else. This is just something, it's better for me. And, so like, you're like, oh, okay. It's not like you have those breakups where it's like, this guy's terrible, get him out of here. It wasn't like that. Like, in the front office isn't like that. They're great guys, at the top, very open. Like, you hear the open door policy. And I always tell people all the time, like, people say that, but no one wants you to come knock on their door. Like, you know, it's one of those like, oh, I have an open door policy, but I'm always busy. Our front office isn't like that. Like, I could probably call our front office right now at 9:00 and they pick up and say, hey, Pnutt, what's going on? You know, you have any questions, concerns? They're all here to help. Now, on the business side, again, this is something that's way above my pay grade. Whatever they're choosing to do, they see a future that's beneficial for the Orlando Magic. And as somebody that works for that staff, I see the benefit as well. If you want to go young and get some draft picks and, say, hey, we're going to start this way, great. If you want to trade and get all veterans, obviously you see, hey, we're trying to, win something now. If you want to save money and possibly get a, huge free agent, whatever it is, they have a plan that's not really what we do. We're here to, whoever you bring in, let's work, let's, get them better so it fits the plan. And we all come together and say, I did my part, they did their part, and this is why we have a championship caliber team. It's almost like a machine, and to be honest, in my opinion, it's more of the well-oiled machines are the ones who are usually winning, right? Your video room, they're all together and they get the information to the coaches. The coaches get the information, they deliver it to the players. The players do the plan and they win the games. The games win, the crowd comes in because the players are there. And then the front office is the one who says, all right, I'm driving this ship. And this is why this is happening, because they're putting people in those positions that, make us sustainable and we win.
That makes perfect sense. Now, I got to ask you, earlier on in the show, you said one of your dream jobs would be to transition to the front office, to some position where you're making the decisions and you're kind of running the show. If you are running the Magic, what is your vision of the Magic right now when it comes to just long-term vision? What is your thoughts on the future of the franchise right now with this transition to go young, with the players on the roster? What are your thoughts on that at this moment?
I think it's in good hands. I mean, if you look at it, and I don't know our average age, but I'm assuming it has to be 23, 24-ish.
Yeah.
Like,
young.
And I honestly, I think that's probably a little older because I want to say, what RJ's like, 20? I think Cole may be like 21, Mo and Wendell might be 22, 23, Markel's 23. You have your older guys like Gary, I think he's 26.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, you have Terrence, who's the elder statesman. I want to say Terrence might be like 29. Like, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Or James Ennis might be 30. Like, so it's not, take off, let's say you take off the older veteran guys and you just go with like this young group in the trade, so on and so forth. They have to be 22, 23. So I think it's in great hands. You're just wanting them to stay young but grow up quick is a term that, like an old coach of mine used to say, right? I want you to be young and play with all this vigor and all this, excitement and so on and so forth. But mentally, I want you to grow up quick so you know where to be, how to be, what it takes to win, come back to the gym and get better, read your playbook or ask questions, watch film, get a routine, all the stuff that, is preached. You want them to do that, but you also want them to play with their youthfulness, So if I were, running it, I would say we're headed in an awesome direction. You know what I mean? Like, this is almost perfect. Could you use, an all-star Vooch? Sure. You know what I mean? Like, that's somebody who, just can count on every single night, right? He's going to do this. But can you get that out of the other guys on our team? Sure. Well, again, just imagine it's healthy. Somebody's going to be consistent every single night to get you those numbers. It may be a collective effort instead of one person. It could be, just imagine, right? I tell people all the time when I was coaching, everybody wants to average 40 points, right? I want to be the man. Could you imagine 10 people averaging 10 points? 10 guys averaging 10 points. You got 100 points. And that's just everybody averaging 10, right? So everybody's like, that's a tough cut. How do you scout that, right? And that doesn't happen, obviously, at this level. Just imagine 10 guys averaging 10 points, but then you have a guy who says, well, I stepped my game up and I'm averaging 15. You got another guy who says I'm averaging 18. Well, look how many points you scored collectively as a team, right? Like, that's kind of what it looks like it could be from our team. You just hope everybody averages 20 and we're just blowing everybody out every single night. That's what we want, right?
Yeah, we're hitting that 200 mark every night. Everyone averaging 20.
Just get out and go, right? Defend and get out and go, right?
Yeah, man, I think you hit the nail on the head. Right now, there's so many young guys, and I think from the fan base, there's a worry that there's just not enough development to go around, because you can only put 5 players on the court at one time. And you have players that, maybe now with a different coaching staff, that they might benefit from, another coaching staff to have a little bit more of an opportunity. And I said this before. I think that I view Mo Bamba as a rookie this season. Just, I'm not sure what has been said, what has happened. I'm not in the mix. I don't know anything. I'm just an outsider. But I've always thought that, he's a player that would benefit from a different environment. And luckily we have the opportunity that the different environment is a different coaching staff. Now, Pnutt, we're gonna get into our overtime, and it's pretty much just rapid fire. I'm going to ask you, 3 simple questions, and you just give us your response. The first one.
All right. Am I timed on this response?
Nah, you're not. You're not timed. If you want to elaborate, you can elaborate.
Okay.
If you were a young player trying to make it into the league, which path you think would be the best way forward? Is it through college? Is it international? Or is it the newfound glory of the G League?
All right, so that's a loaded question. So I would say college, because you never get that time back in your life, right? To like be a young adult growing into whatever you're going to grow into. College basketball is awesome. March Madness, things like that. That's a great experience. I sometimes, talk with my buddies, like maybe they should possibly change the rules, because like college football, they got to stay like 3 years, before they go pro. And I think possibly make a rule like if you win a national title as a freshman, you can go out. If you're National Player of the Year, you can go out. If you, I don't know, make the Final Four, something like that, then you can go. If not, you got to at least come back for another year. One, I think it helps you mature. It helps your body. It also helps, scouting, things like that. You kind of see a little bit more. But at the same time, free country. If you feel like you're good enough to go, go. So I would say college is a big benefit. Now, when it goes to international, I don't see how that hurts you, because like Luka played professionally, international wise where he's from, and look at what he's done in the league. RJ went over there, he's successful. LaMelo Ball went over there, he's successful. Other people, Brandon Jennings, people have done that. So that's, you learn like the pro style. Going to the G League, same thing, right? You're in a pro routine, and with the G League, you get opportunity to play against other pros, right? Every single night, that are in the caliber of where you're trying to go. Because overseas, you could potentially get into a system where they're old school, just dump it into the big man. It's so slow, and you don't really get to, show off what you can do, right? Opposed to like the G League, they're going to play NBA style because all these people are trying to get the NBA. So I think they're all beneficial. I think it's what's beneficial to the person. But if it were I'm biased. I would like to see guys go to college, 2 years, unless there's a certain requirement, like I, kind of made up on my own for those guys, just because there's people who went to college for 3-4 years and they're in the Hall of Fame. So just because you go to the league early doesn't mean you're going to make the Hall of Fame, right? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you get more years on your body, but
Yeah, and get that free education too, right? In the process.
Free education, yeah. Or some of the free education.
That's true. Now, second question for you. I was going to ask you for 5, but that's too many. I want to ask you for just 2 guys in the NBA today that kids should try to resemble the games after. Because again, we all want to be the next Steph Curry, the next LeBron, but we know not everyone is gifted with those traits that they have. So who are 2 guys that you think kids should watch and say, hey, I'm going to learn from those guys?
So I'll give you 3, right? And I'm not going to say guys. I'm going to say if I were the player, right, who would I have to look up to? It would be me, myself, and I. And the reason why is because your skill set is not Steph's. Your skill set's not Kobe's. Your skill set's not LeBron's. Your skill set's not Kevin Durant. You're none of those. You are who you are. Could you take some things from someone's game? Sure, 100%. But how many people handle the ball like Kyrie? How many people shoot the ball like Steph Curry? How many people are, 6'12", as Kevin Garnett once said, about some people who, I'm not 7 foot, I'm 6'12", right? That shoot the ball like Kevin Durant, right? You're 6'1", 135 pounds. How can I model my game after Steph's, right? I can get in the gym and I can shoot it and keep shooting it. So I don't think they should compare themselves or look up to anybody in that regard. But do I think you should say, ooh, I like that move that person does. Let me see if I can do that. Ooh, he shoots 500 shots a day. I can do that. Like, whatever. I think that's how anybody coming into the league That's what they should do. Now, I will tell you this. Coming into the league, one thing that they all should have is like their go-to. What is their one thing that if I can do this consistently, I always have an opportunity, right? And so if it's, for a big man, if I'm just going to jump hook, right? Left, right, jump hook, I'm going to make sure I can do that, right? I'll work on everything else, shooting threes, putting on the ground. But if I get to this block and I can jump hook consistently, right, left hand, that's my key. And all the other stuff is just what makes people say, oh, wow, right? Like, that's good. So that's my opinion. If that helps, answer the question. I know it's kind of off the question, but that's what I
say. That's a great
perfect.
answer. Me, myself, and I like it.
Yeah.
Now, so I'm not sure if you've seen it, but there's a picture of Patrick Star from SpongeBob kind of going around. There's a picture of him kind of locked down in chains, and then it looks like he's on trial. And then you got a bunch of people on the outside kind of looking down. And the question that's being asked is, what basketball take makes you feel that way? Like you're the only one on the island that feels this way, and everyone's kind of looking down on you. Now I'm asking Pnutt, the basketball fan, what would be your wildest basketball take?
Take as in what sense? Like what am I like?
Take as
like,
in for I'll share you mine, and it's probably not it's probably a little insensitive now that I think about it. But I'm a diehard T-Mac fan, and I will live and die when I say that I just personally believe I'm biased. I personally believe that T-Mac was a better player than Kobe Bryant. I think that people may not agree and people may look down on that, but that's my take. I'll die alone on that island. What would be your wildest NBA take?
That Michael Jordan's not the GOAT.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Then I got to ask a follow-up.
That's a good one.
So who is the GOAT in your eyes?
So here's where it gets hairy. What's the category for a GOAT? One. And basketball's a team game. Is Michael Jordan the greatest XYZ of this? Sure. But take championships. Does he have the most championships?
Nope.
No. So does that make Bill Russell the greatest player because he has most championships? Because some people don't even put Bill Russell in their top 10, right?
That's accurate.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is the greatest scorer. No one ever calls him the GOAT, right?
Accurate.
LeBron has all the most statistical categories. He's at the top, and they're kind of saying he's the GOAT, but he's battling, with Michael's GOATness. Magic Johnson, they say he's the greatest point guard. He doesn't own the assist record. Gary Payton has the only guard to win Defensive Player of the Year. He doesn't hold the steals record. What's the GOAT? Now, do I think he was probably the GOAT when it came to being the fiercest competitor who just wanted to win at all costs and would take the whole team on his back, win, lose, or draw? Sure. But I can't take anything away from, the late, great Kobe Bryant. I felt he did the same thing, with his team. Kevin Garnett in Minnesota, when he won MVP. In Minnesota, he won MVP, right? Kevin Garnett every night played, with that. So it's just hard. So for me, when people are like, oh, Jordan is the GOAT, I think he's the greatest, right? Don't get me wrong, one of the greatest. But what makes him the GOAT? And no one can ever say, oh, he's just Jordan. That's what they say. Oh, he's just Jordan. Now, I will tell you this. What made him, to me, the GOAT was that when marketing came about and that Olympics, that 92, that kind, like he was on top of the basketball world. And then to go to the USA team and do how, play, with his grace on these, the other countries. And so it's like, wow, that's Michael. But Michael didn't lead that team in scoring, right? You guys know who led that team in scoring? Charles Barkley.
That's crazy.
Think
about that.
Think about it. A collective, great talent, right?
So why doesn't he use that comeback with Shaquille O'Neal? out of all the times they dog him on the TNT show, that's ammunition that dude should use.
Because honestly, regardless, they're always gonna say, "I got something that you don't have."
That's it.
Kenny doesn't have NBA Olympic, gold medal, but
True.
Shaq and Barkley do or whatever. But Kenny has 2 rings and Barkley does not. You know what I mean? Shaq has 4 rings and Kenny only has 2. You know, they all have one up on everybody or whatever, you know, Hall of Fame or so on and so forth. That's all he could really ever say. Well, I'm in the Hall of Fame. And the only person that really affects is Kenny.
Yeah.
And Kenny could also probably come back now, because didn't TNT just like that show just all become like Hall of Famer broadcasters or whatnot?
Yeah,
So
technically you got his.
Technically I'm in the Hall of Fame. I'm just not
technically
the player. So that would be my thing. Jordan's not the GOAT.
So, but you, it's kind of, now you left us on the edge. Who's that one player you're putting on the pedestal? It only fits one. Who are you putting up there?
I'm biased. I think Magic Johnson is the greatest basketball
Point guard.
player, and I'm not talking about skill wise, talent wise, things like that. Just what he brought to the game. Like, let's run, let's smile, let's have fun. This is a game. Let's let's just create the crazy passes. Let's do all the stuff at that height, at that size that other people don't do. And also, Magic is the only one that ever. He's the only NBA point guard to average double figures assists for a career.
For his career. That's crazy.
So,
Magic Johnson. I like it.
Magic
I like
Johnson.
it.
That's
Laker, but I like it. I like it.
You're talking about player. Yeah, he's a player.
He's a Laker.
Right?
Yeah. Darrell Jordan Jr., aka Pnutt Man, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. For those that want to continue following your journey, where can they find you on social media?
You can go to Instagram. It's Mr. like MR Pnutt. So it's just Mr. Pnutt. Same, like all my tags are the same. Like all my handles everywhere, it's just Mr. Pnutt. Like Pnutt though, not spelled the correct way, spelled the friendly way. Pnutt. You can find me there. Twitter. I really, that's about it. I'm not too savvy on the whole Facebook and all these TikToks and things like that. I'm old, man. Like, so I'm barely hanging on with the Twitters and the Instagram.
Yeah, man. Leave the TikTok alone. Leave it alone. Leave it for the youngins.
Exactly.
All right, man. It's a wrap. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you next week.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you for listening to the OZone Podcast, the voice of Magic fans. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at the OZone Pod. And remember to subscribe and leave a 5-star review on all your favorite podcast listening platforms.